do you feel like there is either a perception or a realistic viewpoint that there is a high level of dependency on cannabis as it relates to the Black community?
What's up, peoples? It's your bartenders, Mr. Z.
And your boy Omega.
Welcome to our first two-part episode. In lieu of the holidays, we will be releasing part 2 next week. This episode, we are filled to the brims with our topic, cannabis. Joined by Erica, Aron, and Velvet Voice Richard as we educate ourselves on marijuana, its history with America and ourselves, as well as tackling the harder conversations surrounding it. As every episode, we want to thank all of you for listening. We truly appreciate you listening to our hearts and minds on varied and difficult topics.
Special thank you goes out to our Patreon subscribers for their support of the show. Every little bit helps us reach our goals to invite more high-profile guests and create bonus content.
And if you want to join in our conversation outside of this cast, feel free to hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at HaveADrinkCast, and make sure to use that hashtag HADcast.
Remember, this is always a conversation. If you don't agree, you want to voice your opinions, or even suggest a topic for an episode, feel free to join our Discord as well. The link will be in the description.
And please, if you like what we're doing here, share us with your friends, your family, your neighbors, your interdimensional alien friend with the Galactic Federation. Yeah. Your referrals mean a lot to us, as that's how we gain more listeners. So,
Thank you again.
and get prepared to sit
Think.
and have a drink.
Welcome to Have a Drink Podcast. Enjoy the episode.
We said peace. What's up, peoples, and welcome back to another episode of the Have a Drink Podcast, where we invite you to sit, think, and have a drink. We're your bartenders, Mr. Z.
And I'm your boy Omega.
And returning to the bar, we have the amazing Erica. And we have the wonderful Aron Carr. So today's episode is going to be about something quite the opposite of drinks. I mean, we never really talk about drinks on here, but it's going to be about cannabis. I felt it was an important topic to talk about, especially because a few things. One, the history of, cannabis, aka marijuana, aka weed, 420, dro, whatever you want to call it, trees, grain. Um, it has been a hot button issue since Reagan, I believe, maybe a little before when they started the war on drugs
And Reefer Madness.
and Reefer Madness. Yes. You get all the after school specials, you see all the dare commercials on weed, plus the current state of marijuana and its relationship with our country. A little teaser is we're going to talk about a bill that is being passed, or that was passed in the House and has to go to the Senate, involving marijuana. um
Awesome.
yeah. As well as I wanted to kind of dive into the culture's relationship to marijuana from people who actively engage in it, hi, to those who don't. And like and explore and explore the even further side of those that are adamantly against it. Yeah, so I guess off top, like what is everyone's relationship with marijuana, cannabis?
So I freaking cat. Okay. Edit that out. Uh, so I don't personally have a relationship with marijuana. I don't smoke. That has been something that I want to say consciously made a decision not to do. It's not something that really has intrigued me. Um, I can't stand the smell. I can't stand the way that smoke just kind of invades um, your entire life and being and clothes and all of that. It drives me insane. Um, I also have seen it not so positively um, impact people, and it's done quite the opposite of what you have expressed for you as a person. I don't judge people who smoke. It doesn't bother me if you smoke. mm, I've dated people who smoke. That's your choice. um, but I just choose not to partake for various reasons.
I'm a regular user. I mean, I smoke pretty much every day. I'd say my relationship with cannabis, it helps me. I won't pretend that like it isn't like a vice, but it also helps me manage a lot of my stronger emotions, um, my appetite, like things like my anxiety, things that I typically struggle with on my own. It helps me like work through those, or um, one thing I like to call it, I like to call it the cocaine to my Sherlock Holmes. Um, it helps me think like a lot more empathetically or creatively. Yeah, I'll be, and you see how hyped up I get about things. A lot of times you just need to the F out. Um, I think Z at one point has labeled me as volatile, and to some extent I'd agree. And I would say for me, marijuana is the one of the components that reduces the Aaron's level of volatility. Um, uh, and yeah, helps me redirect some of that energy. So that's what it is for me. I'd say it's both a vice and like a medicine. And in like high school, I did not smoke at all, and I was very against it. Like you can even see, I even like I was very straight edge, and for me, my motivation, I wanted to be like a good role model for my younger sister. And when I was in like high school and stuff, when my friend, like I had maybe like a couple friends that were doing it, there wasn't anywhere I could go to be high, like where my mom would know, like yeah, especially the way it was the first time I was getting high, like where I was literally laughing for, it felt like 30 minutes, like at myself in the mirror, like then to tears, and then laughing so hard I continued to cry, and then I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna die because I can't stop crying and laughing at the same time, and I don't know what's going on with me. And yeah, no, couldn't have been around mama like in the house like with that. And I didn't, I couldn't be out at a friend's house all weird. I don't know, it wasn't the right time for me in high school. And then when I got to college, I was 17 when I got to college, but um, around that time, around my time I was 18, a little bit into, I wanted to see what I was missing, like I wanted to be able to see what I was saying no to. And there were people that I knew who were doing it that I was very close to. I actually like, I'd say my my weed vampire, the person who gave me the gift and the curse, lived down the hall from us in the dorms. Actually, so Z and I actually lived in the same dorm in college. And it was around, and we were friends around this time. We weren't as close as we are now, but like we were starting to get to know each other, and like we both like weren't like really like doing that. But I remember one time Z gave me this edible, like, or the icing to this edible that he had, and it fucking made me go insane. Like I felt like my nerves were just like on like fucking somebody like put a fucking I can't even it was like a live wire, you know, like I had never felt like just like so like not me, and it was pretty scary. And
Mind you, that was before the education surrounding marijuana and edibles that I
right,
received
and
was
dosages,
yeah,
all
and
that kind of
dosages and all of
yeah.
that stuff. But yeah.
We was yeah, it was just it was just like homemade shit. Oh, cool, yeah, let's do it. But it was a lot, and then you know, the first couple times it was like really really intense and kind of scary, but like part of me kind of liked it, and I had people around me that kind of like left it as an option, and I don't know. Eventually, I kind of felt safe, but for a while I kind of I had this like internal struggle about being like feeling like a degenerate, you know, because I was smoking, and then like because like the old me wouldn't have like appreciated this and didn't want to change and whatnot, and this new me was like enjoying himself maybe a little too much, and you know, and had never been doing this stuff before. But I think what I reconciled with was that a lot of the ideas that, you know, that old me had like about what I was doing now were like the ideas that a 9-year old, you know, made about his life, you know. And that's true about a lot of things, you know, that you kind of carry as you go on, you know, what type of person you're going to marry, what type of job you're going to have, what type of who you going, all types of preconceived notions of who you are a lot of times are created by a child, you know, with no like real um uh concept or life experience. So uh I I don't know. Once I kind of got away from like this person that I imagined being and like who I enjoyed being, this isn't like a PSA to like say that, you know, like drugs help you find out who you are, man. You know, but I definitely found out that I could do this thing and not become like a coke addict or start doing meth or you know, like be susceptible to alcoholism, you know, like um i I learned a bit of self-control in allowing myself to enjoy, or you know, like, and to take on this vice, you know, which for me at the time was what it was. So um now that I enjoy its effects, I think that it's a bit more medicinal, and I'm a bit more regular. You know, my feelings and ideas are a lot more coherent. But yeah, now, and I went from, yeah, basically you guys learned that sum it up, I was hardcore, like super against it, like wouldn't do it, and then now I'm like stoner, you know, like his eyes are all like and yeah, I be getting high, 420 blaze it.
Thank you for sharing. I think it's also important before we continue that like I kind of give like a brief definition of what cannabis is for people who have no idea. And if you're listening to this and you have no idea, how did you find us? Please let me know. Cuz I would love to know that. Um So cannabis is also known, like I said, as marijuana, among many other names. It's a psychoactive drug from the cannabis plant used primarily for medicinal or recreational purposes. It's interesting. For me, I've had my relationship with marijuana has been it's been in my life since I was little, but not ingested, if that makes any sense. So my mom, I mentioned before, she had DID, and she also went through a lot of trauma and whatnot from like past relationships, life in general, family, etc. And so when anything got like really bad, my mom would flip out and go crazy. But there was always a time that I knew that things were going to be okay. It would be when I could smell like a skunk smell coming off of my mom, and B, there was nakchampa like being burned through the house, incense. So nakchampa is an amazing smelling incense, and like it brings back that nostalgia. And my mom would come out of her room or out of wherever she was at after like going through all this and then smoking. She finally is like, calm down. She'll come out and be like, do you want to watch Babe? Do you want to sit on the couch? We can have some popcorn. You can eat peanut butter on a spoon. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. My mom is awesome. And and I always knew that when I smelled nakchampa, I knew that that other thing was happening. But fast forward now, I mean, I didn't smoke until I was in college. I tried it once in high school, and I was like, oh, this is not something I can do right now. And like I waited until I was like, I'm gonna wait until college to try this, and I did. And I'm an active user, like I use it for pain, as a dancer and whatnot. Joint pain is real. I got tendonitis, so that's no fun. um and like a couple forms of it, which is, I'm like, oh great, let's just toss in a mix up. So I use it for that, and as well as like, yeah, it helps with anxiety, helps with appetite, helps with, also helps with sleeping. That um one thing that we'll get into later is a little bit more education surrounding cannabis, the different types of strains, the different uh chemical compounds of marijuana. um
Started off very non-existent. Actively stayed away from it. Ultimately, just didn't have too much knowledge of it. Grew up in a very strict and conservative household where if nothing was of God, it was the devil. So, of course, I grew up smoking is the devil. No knowledge of it, right? So, also, I didn't want it to prevent me from like a dream job or opportunity. So, like, I would hate, especially growing up in Texas, everybody's strict on marijuana at the time. Now I think it's a little bit loose. Um, but at the time, I just actively stayed away from it because I didn't want it to prevent me from losing jobs. Then I was just like, I'm like mid late 20s. We can try it, you know? Um, and it took a while for me to get into it. Then I had a not so good relationship with it. Was really at a downtime for me in life. So I really got into it and actively had to pull myself out of it and just like distance myself away from it. Experimented a few times, and I'm glad I got that experience. But now I'm just like, you know what? Tried it, not for me. No, no slander to anybody that does it or participate. Live your life, do you? I just know that it's not for me. But after living in California, I get it. I understand it. I think it's hilarious how like in California, I smelled weed every day. Every single day. And I had no issue with it, but it was also so normal as well. So I don't have no issue with it, man. Live your life. I think a lot of it, and I don't want to ramble, I think a lot of the information out there is really out of fear, and there are a lot of wrong things. And once you really get down to the bottom and base of it, we had past presidents that was, puffing on the pipe, and like that's okay. Chris Rock had a skit where basically saying in so many words, he was just like, this is at the time when it was like all illegal. And he was like, it's only legal because the best drugs aren't sold in America. So, and so in so many words, I feel like with people getting more information, there's a younger generation of politicians getting in the legislation, things are changing. Um, and it affects everybody differently, but I do love the medicinal purposes behind it. I think it very is helpful. Everybody's different. I'm sorry. It is helpful to a lot of people. Everybody's different. But I really, before people judge, I think that judgment is just out of misinformation. I feel like if you read the information in front of you and get the facts, then I think it can change your mind.
So, my relationship is not complicated, it's just different. So, and I say that because I grew up in a super religious family and upbringing, and not realizing that that's one side of my family. The other side of my family, there's a lot of weed smoking going on in that side of the family, you know? So my mom's side was the religious side. My dad's side was a little bit more freer thinking, just a little bit. Yeah, that was just more embraced on that side. But it was behind closed doors, I guess I would say. So it wasn't so free. It wasn't like I'd sit there and my dad would just start puffing in front of us. No, never that. Matter of fact, for a long time, I had no idea he even did it. I just knew he used the bathroom for a long period of time. Like, and then come to find out he was smoking that sweet Chiva. But yeah, so you kind of see the high times and the low times, no pun intended. Because I've seen those that really that really used it but weren't on a good path, and that would give you like a negative connotation on it. But then you'd also see those that were fine, that were functioning, that went through life like it was nothing. My first introduction with it, believe it or not, was in 8th grade. It was on a late start Wednesday, and I just tried it with my friends. I did. I tried it with my friends behind the backstop at my middle school, and that was a great experience for me. It was really positive, really calm, really chill, and it was very interesting because my 8th grade English teacher, she was like talking to the whole class, talking about because she was talking about word got out that people were doing that, so the admin was trying to crack down. So my first day was the day the admin decided to crack down on it. So I'm sitting there high as a kite in class. My teacher walks over. She's like, "Yeah, we know when people have been smoking. Don't you believe me, Anthony?" And she taps my arm and starts rubbing it. And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I believe it. Man, I am high as a kite. I am asleep." And she's like, "Don't you believe me?" No, nothing. Nobody said anything to me. That was the day I ran the best mile of my life, the fastest mile of my life. I could breathe. I was an asthmatic and I could breathe. I was like, well, man, you know what? Maybe I can do this again.
Maybe I can.
Then I did it again, and I was like, I had not episode, but another time doing it, and it was different. Where I was like sluggish. I was tired. I was hungry. I was laughing at everything, so it was kind of like the opposite where I wasn't productive anymore. Now it was the opposite. So it was just different. And I was like, this isn't for me, so it's just those moments when things go up and down. That was kind of interesting. But yeah, so that was just kind of my introduction to marijuana. And I didn't really smoke it again until after high school. And I was highly pressured into it by one guy, my freshman. He just like almost threatened to beat me up if I didn't smoke with him. And I was like, that's fine, you can try, but I'm not going to do it. Like, nobody's going to pressure me to do nothing I don't want to do.
For real.
And then come to find out later, people ended up respecting me more because I didn't do anything, and it's just my choice of I tried it, wasn't for me, moved on. So yeah, that's me.
Something everyone said was really interesting. You saw the negative effects of marijuana on others, right? And experienced some yourself. Correct me if I'm wrong. Everyone said something like that to an extent.
Correct.
So it's interesting just to hear that commonality between all of your experiences, considering I've seen the worst of the worst happen, and it had nothing to do with marijuana. Like marijuana was what I felt a saving grace for my family. I've seen family members withdraw from heroin back to back to back, 2 weeks at a time, laying up in bed, shivering, throwing up, aches, pains, yelling, crying, like the whole nine. I've seen it and I saw it as a kid. And so when I got older and I noticed family members smoking marijuana, I noticed that they were way more chilled in that experience. So everyone saw how marijuana affected those close to them negatively, but I saw worse drugs, affecting my family members. And marijuana just ended up being one of those things that didn't have a negative effect. I eventually, as I just kept going with it, I didn't have that connection. I would hear stories. That was the other thing. I would hear stories about people and their experiences. They were like, no, I had a really bad experience with marijuana, X amount of years ago, or this one is the one that baffles me the most. And I think I might know why, but when they tell me they used to smoke, they're like, I used to smoke so much and then I stopped for so many years or whatever. And then I tried smoking again and I don't know what happened. I
Had
just
an
got so
anxiety
paranoid.
attack.
Yeah, I got so paranoid. I was freaking out. It was like the marijuana turned on me. And I was like, I've never had that experience because I've gone stretches. I've gone years. I've gone smaller stretches of time, like without smoking. Didn't didn't affect me negatively when I started up again.
When you stopped for your stretches and then you came back, did you smoke at the same volume before you stopped?
It's hard to do that actually.
It
Like
is.
when
It
you
is
have
really
a
hard.
tolerance that's gone down, you kind of back
Build
near
it, yeah.
square one. Never can get
Yeah.
that high again, kids.
But the reason
But
why I asked that is because maybe that's what it is like they remembered what they did and then they tried to relive that moment again. And it
Like
was,
smoking like a whole blunt to their face and all
yeah.
those experiences.
it's
Well,
just I don't know. It just feels different. I don't know. Like I can attest to that feeling, but like it's kind of just something you ride through. It's like if you haven't drank for a bit, if you're having drinks regularly, and then you stop and then you you go out like one night and have like three drinks and you're like, oh god damn, like I don't know what happened. I used to could do that, like that's not nothing. But I think it's kind of like that.
well, actually, it's interesting because it's interesting to hear that perspective from you, Aaron, but also that you bring that up, because I had an experience during one of my stretches of years where I wasn't smoking. Um, I I ended up going over to this new friend's house who happened to be growing, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to smoke?" I was like, "Oh yeah, hell yeah." I took one hit off the bong and I was high and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot, I'm going to be high again." But like I'm a high functioning stoner. And I get that from my mom. My mom went through all those, drug addict phase. She was a high functioning drug addict. Like I can smoke weed and go and run or dance. I mean, I don't run anyway. Like, even if I did smoke, like I don't run. But like I would go dance for 5 hours straight, or I'll be productive. I'll write, I'll create, I'll be, like clean, whatever, like whatever it is, I'll go do it. So I got that from my mom's, but this time after hitting the bong, I I had to go lay down. I was so high. Like I had what I assume is the experience everyone else does, because it felt like my weed was laced with something else, because it didn't hit like weed. Yeah. So, I mean, it could either be a toss up of like, trying to consume the same amount or, getting some tainted shit, which I've heard happens. My mom would talk about that all the time. Make sure you grow your own shit.
Interesting.
That's my mom voice. For future episodes, you'll hear that.
See, that's interesting because for me, I can remember a time when I used to live with my boys. We had an apartment, and we all smoked. First time I smoked with them, everybody. And when I tell you things changed, I mean literally things changed in a matter of minutes. Like I specifically remember this like it happened yesterday. I'm sitting on the couch, and it's like I did my little toke, whatever, and the next thing I know, I felt like everything was in a film strip. So life literally was a film strip. So I can see it going next clip, next clip, next clip, next clip, next clip. So everything
Oh,
was
you
like
mean
next clip.
salvia? That's salvia.
Bro, that's exactly what I was thinking. That's salvia.
That's salvia.
I didn't know
does
that because that happened to me, and I literally started chewing on the couch right next to me. And my boys was like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Nothing."
That's not a fun experience.
And then I was chewing on the couch, and then I was eating cereal with a fork out of a red cup. I would do that sober, but
that's crazy that you like could move that much. Yeah, no, the paper being turned over and over again is a very very common salvia experience.
I had to go to bed. I literally, I was like, "Yo, I'm too high. I can't handle this. I'm going to bed."
Heart thumping through your chest. You can feel it. You think you're about to die.
You feel it in the base of your skull, like coming. It's like a train. It's like a train coming from behind you, and then once it hits you, man, like it. I remember, don't do that. Don't do salvia, kids.
No.
So with this one experience, it was like I was like under the influence, and I could tell that the ideas that I was having didn't make any sense because I was under the influence, but I didn't understand why they didn't make any sense. I just, man, it was like why I was obviously in a Roman freaking Coliseum, and Judy Dench is in my ear, like talking to me, and like I don't know what she's saying, but for somehow I know it's Judy Dench, and I'm actually in real life, I'm on my balcony, like in our apartment, like in freaking, oh my god, yeah, no, you don't want to do that. Don't do that. Don't do that, kids. You don't want to do stuff like that. You don't want to talk to Judy Dench. you don't want.
I mean, maybe in real life, but not on salvia.
Talking to you in Greek. You don't know Greek. She don't know Greek either.
But on that salvia, she did.
On salvia, all of that makes sense.
I want to take us off of our personal history, and I want to segue it to our history with marijuana in America. Actually, so marijuana, I mean, a lot of people know it as dope. They know it as weed. They know it as, 420 trees, whatever it is, cannabis. But what people who aren't really educated with marijuana or cannabis don't really know is that it's connected to hemp, which in the 17th century was like one of the main, resources for clothing, for ropes, for sails, and then somewhere around the 20th century, so like 1900s, around the Great Depression, there was, a massive unemployment that increased, and there began this fear. There was like this public resentment and fear of governmental concerns and the problem of marijuana. So you'd have different crimes or things that would be linked to marijuana use. And that kind of like build up for quite a few years. Um, and it was used to racially divide the country, tag that on to minorities, marginalized groups, people of color, especially like black people in our in this country. And we've had quite a few presidents who have like ramped up the if everyone's heard of the famous war on drugs. um there was a lot of different acts that came out, but one in particular, there was a propaganda film known as Reefer Madness.
Has anybody else on this panel seen that movie, Reefer Madness, in school?
I
Did
know
you
about
see?
it, but I never watched it. I
Yes.
didn't
Oh,
watch the propaganda.
Oh well, no, we had to watch it in school. They brought it out and made us sit down and watch it. So that's why I
Not
asked.
yeah,
Sure,
not
I've
in my
seen it
school.
and
Oh, hell
probably
no.
slept through it.
That's probably why you guys smoke weed now, you druggies.
well, I mean, the film. I'm trying to remember specifics about it. If I can give like an air of what it was like. It's like those after school specials.
Very cheesy, black and white
Hmm.
movie, and they try to overemphasize how bad weed is and what it does to your life. It is pretty much the opposite of everything that weed does to you. So they're like, it's got you running around like you're a crazed maniac. No, brother, that's the cocaine that guy was on, or the crack. Not weed. Weed doesn't do that to you. It makes you a sex crazed maniac. No, no, it doesn't.
That was perfect because like there was this inherent link to, like I said, marginalized groups. They first tacked it on to what was it? How did they refer to it? As the marijuana menace brought over by the Mexican immigrants who used it. um and that was early 1900s, right before 1936, when they released Reefer Madness. And then there was this marijuana tax act that happened a year later. So after a lurid national propaganda campaign against the evil weed, Congress passed the marijuana tax. The statute effectively criminalized marijuana, restricting possession of the drug to individuals who paid an excise tax for certain authorized medical and industrial uses. Sound familiar? And then there's a LaGuardia report that finds marijuana less dangerous. That happens around 1944. New York Academy of Medicine issued an extensively researched report declaring that, contrary to earlier research and popular belief, use of marijuana did not induce violence, insanity, or sex crimes, or lead to addiction or other drug use. So you mentioned that, when you tried it, you didn't feel, that slippery slope to do anything else. That kind of relationship with it was, either you were doing that stuff because you were doing it already, or that's just who you were. It wasn't, this is a gateway to that. Um, and then throughout the 1940s, during World War II, imports of hemp. There was a hemp for victory. So basically, other materials crucial to producing marine cordage, parachutes, and other military necessities became scarce. And so, in response, the U.S. Department of Agriculture launched its Hemp for Victory program. It encouraged farmers to plant hemp by giving out seeds and granting draft deferments to those who would stay at home and grow hemp. By 1943, American farmers registered in the program harvested 375,000 acres of hemp. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm gonna say 99.9999999% of those farmers were white. Like I want to say, like, a high percentage of those farmers were white, because a lot of the individuals who were being targeted and criminalized surrounding marijuana, especially during these times, were black people, just people of color in general, minorities, marginalized groups. So we fast forward through quite a few years, and we hit the Federal Laws Act the Boggs Act of 1952, the Narcotics Control Act of 1956. All of these laws and things put in place to raise the danger level and or sentencing of those caught with marijuana. So it becomes a list on the Schedule 1 narcotics. If I'm correct? It is currently a Schedule 1 controlled substance. And then we have the creation of the Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs Bureau. We move on through the years, and there's an increase of the mandatory minimum sentences surrounding drug possession, specifically marijuana.
How how is marijuana a Schedule 1 drug? And you look at the Schedule 1 list, it is ridiculous at what is on there. And I don't know how peyote looks, but it's crazy. All I know is this marijuana, it's almost like the aspirin to all those drugs.
So President Nixon's aide, he's quoted as describing like what their attitude towards the war on drugs and why it came about. And it's a 22-year-old interview, but he says, and this is former domestic policy chief John Ehrlichman, Ehrlichman probably. So the Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies: the anti-war left and Black people. And this is from CNN Politics, also from other this interview is available, it's out there. So he said, and Black people, he said, you understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or Black, but getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and Blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. And that's the fucking truth. That is literally like the bottom barrel truth of the war on drugs. It was like perpetuated to vilify like people of color and hippies in the nightly news, and we've never gotten away from that. I mean, you see, like just like now, like as soon as white people are interested in smoking and making a profit off of marijuana, it has to become legal. We're pushing for that. Things are happening, but like that's where the war on drugs specifically. A lot of the
conservative views surrounding
conservative views, yeah, sure, from those times come from that rhetoric. But anyway, cheers to that.
So fast forward to present times, and we have medical marijuana. We have how many states now that have it legalized for recreational and medicinal use? We treat it the same way that we're treating it, that we treat alcohol. At one point there was a prohibition against alcohol, which in my opinion is like 50 to 100 times worse than marijuana. Like I've seen alcohol destroy more lives and way easier than marijuana has ever done, outside of the government.
Going back to what you were saying, I'm looking at a map now that was updated from November 4th. 6 states, it's illegal. In the other states, it's either legalized, medical, and decriminalized, medical, or decriminalized. But the 6 states where it's marijuana is still fully illegal: Idaho, Wyoming, Kansas, Tennessee, Alabama, and South Carolina.
Sounds about right. So yeah, like we have majority of states, legalizing it. And now there are these new studies, new research that's come out, and you know um new advancements for health, surrounding Parkinson's. There have been Parkinson's patients and individuals with, I think, palsy, cerebral palsy. So yeah, I mean, for where like it's calmed the nervous systems down, you know. And there's help with cancer patients to help them get through the grueling treatments that they have to go through. It's giving them their appetite, helping curb the pain, or just give them a different experience while they're also feeling like shit, and trying to fight for their lives. It's interesting. I kind of want to open up the floor for a moment. Now that we've kind of like grazed the history of both ours and United States, and we kind of caught up to the present, I'm kind of curious, like, what are some common misconceptions around marijuana that you might have, that you might want to clear up, like something that you feel so like and you don't know if it's true or not?
That it makes you lazy.
Mm,
I think a lot of people feel like it makes you lazy, not realizing that different strains do different things. But a lot of people feel like it just makes you lazy and it makes you eat all the time, and not realizing that that's not always the case.
right. I mean, don't get me wrong. I get the munchies. It's that hunger that grows inside of you after you're done smoking, but it's just because the flavors are enhanced for you. You're not really hungry. You're just, you want to enjoy the taste of food. You want to enjoy the experience of eating. You don't
Marijuana
necessarily.
typically suppresses my appetite.
Hmm. That's interesting. I mean, there are different strains that mess with my appetite.
Well, it's an allergic reaction, like it's gonna be different and just about everybody who experiences it. It's really hard to have like a really yeah, I know some people who when they hit it, like they start twitching and stuff, or like they like sativa does like the opposite of what it normally does, which is keep you awake and make you more talkative, or indica. So I think it's just one of those things. It's different strokes. It's I think the properties are there though, for it. Like my grandmother, like she'll sometimes there are days she's down and doesn't feel like getting up, but she'll like rub some CBD on her like her areas that are sore, and like she's up and moving again, like it works for her, that people who have like seizures or it has that quality. And I think if we're going to like seriously combat things like over the counter, what are they, over the counter prescription drug and opioid epidemic? Yeah, I had to think on that one. The opioid epidemic, which like the Trump administration really hasn't done anything about, even though they have highlighted it as a epidemic. I mean, and for me, it's weird because like it's an epidemic because like drug companies have allowed like the spread of these opioids to just go wild. You see in like 60 minutes there'll be people getting 3 million codeine pills and stuff, like it there are a lot of things systemically that make opioid addiction not only acceptable but like likely, if you have like a medical situation, like they're going to prescribe you something that's likely highly addictive, like, and I'm not, this isn't an anti-science or like anti-vax type of a deal, like but or you don't always know how it's going to work out. So one thing I do want to say, I think one misconception is that I think just in general, people have like especially if you don't do it, or if you do it, you have this almost preconceived notion that it affects other people in the way that it affects you. I'm not saying that people can't not do it and then not have to distance themselves from what they do to what other people do, but if it makes you feel like you're dumb or you're out of control, and you see other people doing it, that's how they feel. They probably feel out of control. They're yeah, like a lot of times that I think people just project.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what I think, but I want to know, do you feel like there is either a perception or a realistic viewpoint that there is a high level of dependency on cannabis as it relates to the Black community?